back to Illegally Sighted. This is Jesse, and I am back for another episode of Growing Up Illegally Sighted. And this time we are going to be talking about a couple of different things. And it kind of ties into school, grade school, high school, transition, maybe college. It's all the stuff around the side, or on the side. I'm probably going to put this video in between the grade school, high school video and the transition college video. I think it would be most appropriate there because, in addition to school, a lot of what you learn, a lot of what I found most valuable, whether it's, again, high school, college, whatever, is all the stuff that you do outside of class. And I think that in a fair number of cases, maybe disabled students may not have as many opportunities as non-disabled students. Whether it's playing sports or extracurricular activities, getting that after-school job work experience, summer job work experience, even just socializing. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So I had plenty of work experience because I worked my butt off on the farm. So I learned really quick what work was all about. But I really didn't get an actual paying job until toward the end of high school, if not in college. And since I lived in the middle of nowhere, even in high school, I couldn't drive. I wasn't in town where most everybody else lived, so I wasn't hanging out with my other classmates and, socializing and having fun or doing other stuff. I would occasionally, but not very often. And then there's also going to be a lot of times where I think this also ties into is a lot of the barriers that people with disabilities face are out of our control. Unfortunately, the sad truth is, I've always kind of said, in order to be thought of as, half as equal, we have to work twice, 3 times, if not more times as hard. So, it's like we got to go above and beyond, and we kind of always have to be on our game. If we lapse and, oh, God forbid somebody in public sees us and we have a, for lack of a better word, disability moment, like a blind moment, oh, I got lost or I did something stupid because I misunderstood my surroundings or something. That's what people see and that's what people remember. I mean, it's sad, but like I said, it's the sad reality. But there's a lot of times where, low expectations, stereotypes, misconceptions, all those types of things play into, we know that we're capable of doing something, or at least we're pretty confident that we could learn to do that thing, but sometimes we're not allowed to, or we're just not given the opportunity. And so those are the kind of things that I want to address in this video. So again, if you're like a student or a transition student, I hope this might be helpful for you. If you are an adult, a parent, a staff member at a school, or, anyone that you just work with someone with a disability, whether it's a relative, a friend, or, whoever you work with, maybe it'll give you some ideas for advocating for that student or for that kid themselves. So I'll start by kind of going into some of my experiences, and then I'll try to give just some general thoughts, and advice or ideas, based on not just my experience, but, having several disabled friends or having worked in the blindness, low vision field for many years now. So like I said, when I grew up, I lived on a farm. I was in the middle of nowhere, and my parents, Granted, I kind of hated it, and back then it's like, well, if I could have got out of it, I would have. But like I said, from an early age, I was doing chores, I was working with animals, I was doing all the farm stuff. It's like, well, yeah, your eyes don't work as well, but guess what? Your legs and arms do. Get cracking. Do the, work, feed the animals, water them, water the garden, do whatever, mow lawns, anything else that any person would, a teenager would do, kid would do. Um, and I had my few friends that I would hang out with and we would do stuff. Um, but one of the first times that I really remember not being able to do something that I really kind of wanted to, was, I can't remember if it was fourth or fifth grade. I think it might have been fifth, where students could join band. And, we had a thing the year before, or early that year, to where we went down into the gymnasium, the gym, and they had all these instrument stations lined up, and we could go check them out, see what they were like, ask questions, and we would choose our instrument. What did we want to play in band? And just like everyone else, I followed along. I went, and I looked at them. I really wasn't so interested in the woodwinds or the brass instruments. I was really kind of curious about drums, because by that point I started listening to my own music. I listened to what my parents did on the radio and whatnot, or my mom and dad were into a lot of like rock, classic rock, even some early metal. Like, my dad liked everything from like hippie music to Black Sabbath. So my parents were cool. They were rockers, man. One of my mom's favorite bands is AC/DC. Hell yeah, man. So yeah, I grew up listening to that. And I'm like, dude, yeah, we could play drums in band practice, or in band or marching band or pep band or whenever. But if I learned drums, I could play some of the songs that I want to play, real music outside of school. Because that was the other thing about both band and chorus, I think, back then. And I remember I think we had to be in chorus for like a year or two. And I never really liked it because I never liked to sing. So I really didn't want to be in choir or chorus or whatever. But the other thing is, I always thought it's like they always focus on these like foreign language songs, or the songs that were made in like 1312 or something that's like, centuries old. I'm like, I want to learn how to sing like at least some more contemporary, some more modern songs that, like, again, that you would hear. Now, granted, there's not many, you don't hear big band, or big choirs on the radio much, but I don't know. I never really liked it. But band, I wanted to play drums. And, I tried them out. And I did get I got a snare drum. Because I thought, okay, well, then I'll be able to practice. And the school and my parents said, okay, well, let's give it a shot. But I don't think I attended more than a couple band practices until the school was like, started making excuses. Well, you can't really see as well to read the music, and you can't see the conductor. So, what if you get off and like the drummer, the drums, they really carry the beat of the songs, and you can't read the music, you struggle to read it. How are you going to keep up? How are you going to learn? Blah, 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 blah. So they kind of talked. I don't exactly remember how it worked, but basically, after a very short period of time, I had to give my drum, my snare drum away, or we gave it back or sold it back or whatever we did, to where we got it. So I was not able to play drums. They convinced the school or the band people convinced the school, and they probably convinced my parents, my mom. Okay, well, he's not going to be able to keep up with it. Let's find him something else to do. And I was kind of bummed because, like I said, I kind of wanted to learn drums. I thought it was kind of neat. Instead, they're like, well, the band teacher at the time also knew how to play guitar. What if, instead of playing drums, what if you learned to play guitar? That way you're still learning something. You know, if you learned a song or two, you could even play during band recitals, that kind of a thing for school, which I did a couple of times. And in a way, I was sort of fine with that because, yeah, I like rock music, and guitar is right there. Primarily, it's one of the primary instruments in rock. So I'm like, well, I guess if I can't play the drums, it could be worse. I get to try to learn to play guitar. And my grandpa played guitar. He played basically like older, like kind of bluegrass type stuff. He could play guitar, he could play piano. And so the cool thing was, once I learned some basic chords and stuff, and I would go visit my grandparents, and usually every summer at the time we had a bunch of relatives come out. A lot of my relatives on my dad's side lived out in Washington State, and so there would just be this huge crew of people that would come back, and we would just get together and visit and have fun and whatever. But like, I just still remember, we would have couple people, and I would play guitar, Grandpa would play piano, and it was just kind of fun, a little jam session. But that was one of my first experiences where it's like, I really wanted to play drums, and always something in the back of my head, I always kind of wanted to go back to it. Because as I had started to learn guitar, I learned a few chords, I learned a few, I don't want to say lead guitar stuff, but like, not just chords, but like actually playing fretted notes, for riffs and stuff. But I always felt like my fingers were never coordinated or fast enough to really to play the kind of music that I wanted to play. And so I always hit a plateau. Like, I played quite a bit in like junior high-ish, even through high school some. I kind of quit for quite a while. Then I picked it up probably about 10 years ago for a couple of years. And then I want to say it was like 2014-ish or so, that thing with drums still was in the back of my mind. And I lived in an apartment. I lived in the same apartment I do now. And I'm like, electronic drum kits have actually come a long way. I remember seeing them several years ago, and they sounded kind of like crap. They just sounded they sounded digital. They didn't sound like a traditional drum kit. They sounded like they sounded digital, or they sounded electronic. They didn't sound quite as real. But they were starting to sound interesting enough to where I'm like, if I could find a small kit, what the heck? I'm going to invest in a drum kit, and I'm going to try to teach myself drums just to see if I can. I figure, yes, it takes coordination, but I can probably bash on things better than I can try to do all this fancy stuff on a, guitar fretboard. So I went with a friend of mine, and we went to Guitar Center one afternoon, and I looked at a couple of kits, and I found one that was really nice and compact. I have a video from way back when. It was the Roland TD4KP drum set, and I'm still playing it. Actually, I play it more now than I did even when I started. And yeah, I've never had a drum lesson to this day. And I'm sure I probably have some bad habits that I just don't know about because no one told me and I don't know any better. But for the weight, I'm not going to be a professional musician, more than likely. at this time in my life. I'm just doing it for fun. If I get to jam with some friends or something, which I've done in the past, that's also a blast. But contrary to what people would tell me when I wanted to join band, yeah, not only did I learn drums, I wasn't even taught drums. I figured it out all myself. Um, so, now I have a full couple of playlists on my Google Music or YouTube Music of songs that I can play or that I want to play or that I think I can learn to play. And I play literally every other day usually. Um, it's great stress relief. It's just fun. It's, have a fun way to not just listen to music, but interact with it, playing an instrument is just fun. So, like I said, that was my first experience with like, oh, well, because of your vision, you can't do this. Um, and, going back now, it's like, man, if I could show them, if I could rub that in my, in the school's face back then, I'm like, man, see, I told you so. Um, there are definitely times with just my attitude and my personality where, like, if somebody tells me something that I can't do, that I really want to try at the very least, I will want to try to even just figure it out, or I will want to try and do it just out of spite to say, oh, you really don't think I can do that because I'm blind, huh? Or I'm low vision. Okay. Well, let me show you how it's done. Let me rub that in your face. you know. Um, but yeah, so that was my first example, or my first thing that I really remember of like, you can't do this just like other kids can. We're not going to let you. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad I learned guitar. I still remember a few chords here and there, but like I said, I've never gotten very good at the guitar. I feel like I can play way more songs on drums than I ever could on the guitar. Then we go to things like Phi Ed and sports. I didn't mind Phi Ed. A lot of the grade school games, I could do most of them. I played all the Phi Ed stuff with every, we did all your typical, we did running, we did the stretches and sit-ups and push-ups, and we did the long jump, the high jump. I remember we had the play day kind of thing where we had all these events and you could try to, 100-meter dash or 50-yard dash or, like I said, high jump, long jump. Playing with the parachute, that got pretty dangerous. Remember those little scooters, those things were brutal, man. I remember many people got their fingers hurt playing with those. Actually, they wouldn't let us do that anymore. There was a time where it's like, no, you guys don't get to do scooters anymore because too many people were getting hurt and you guys were just crazy. You guys were nuts. I mean, it wasn't just our class, but I think that probably would have been a common occurrence. I wonder if they still do those little. And when I say scooters, I mean they're like little square boards with four wheels on them, and like usually you would sit on them or lie on them, and then like somebody would like pull or push you by your legs, or just all kinds of crazy stuff. We played kickball. But when kickball I could do because I could at least kind of see the ball coming toward me, and it was generally a little bit slower. Softball or baseball, I tried. Even like volleyball, those types of sports I was never good at. Depth perception and all that. I was very lucky to ever hit anything with a bat. I can have a big old like puffy foam bat. I could have a big ball. It didn't matter. Like I could see the ball coming, but not apparently well enough, or I just couldn't aim. My depth perception was off. And for a while, they had me really participating in those sports in Phi Ed, and that was kind of a point where I kind of wish I could have done something else because I felt like I was just not part of the team. I was just not doing anything. If I was playing like baseball or softball, it was like, oh, I'm standing in the outfield on defense, and God forbid the ball comes anywhere near me. I'm not going to be able to catch it. So that was pretty much just an exercise of me standing there for 45, 50 minutes. Really didn't like that. But eventually, when we did like volleyball or when we did some things that I just really, really had trouble, I mean, finally the FIA teacher was like, when we're doing these types of activities, either by myself or maybe he'd let a friend join me, and we would play kind of indoor baseball or indoor softball in the gym. And in that gym we had we had the big stage at the one end, and behind the curtains we had a bunch of fitness equipment. There was like there's like a big old weightlifting station where you had like 4 or 5, 6 different types of weightlifting activities. You had you had dumbbells, you had the bench press, whatever. So when they would do that, I would just go lift weights, and I was fine with that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Back in high school, it was always a thing of how much can you bench? I don't know, that was just a guy thing, I guess. But I was decent. So I did that. And as far as sports go, I never really got to play regular sports. Again, I was not interested in baseball. Basketball was okay. I would play, a couple of pickup games with, kids at their houses, or we'd play horse or something. I was okay at basketball, but what I really kind of liked was football, and I was never allowed to play any sports for our home school teams. Yeah, I couldn't have been a quarterback because figuring out where I'm going to throw it to or who I'm going to throw it to, not a thing. I probably couldn't have been a receiver. But even back then, I was said this in an earlier video where I wasn't self-aware to know enough to what I thought I could or couldn't try to do. Looking back now, I'm like, yeah, I probably could have been a lineman, a defensive or offensive lineman. Oh, the guy right in front of you, plow him over. That's basically what your job is. If you see the ball near you, dive on it. I could have probably done that. So instead, what ended up happening was, must have been 8th, 9th, or 9th, 10th. I did it for 2 years. There was a school that was, there was the town that was next to us. They were slightly bigger. They were still pretty tiny. But they had, their regular sports team, but then they also had a Special Olympics team. And I should back up before I go there. There was, like, during junior high, there were a couple of times, or even I think like maybe 8th, 9th grade, where they wouldn't let me play, but they would kind of let me go to practices, and I could be the quote unquote student manager, where I could help out the coach, or kind of the water boy type of thing. It's like, oh, you go to a game, make sure go to the bathroom or go to the water fountains, fill up the water bottles so players can have a quick drink when they need to, when they're on the sidelines. I did a little bit of that, and it just, I don't know, I really didn't enjoy that as much as I thought. But yeah, so I tried that. It was kind of a way of like, well, we'll let you at least be around your friends or something. But like I said, the town nearby had a Special Olympics basketball team. And so they thought, well, if you want to play, let's try putting you here. And I did it a couple of years. It was kind of weird. I know some of my classmates always used to give me crap, or because they're like, oh, you traitor, you're playing for basically one of our rivals. I'm like, I said, well, guess what? Even back then, I was smart enough to say, well, guess what? You guys won't let me play, then they will. Screw you guys. Um, so that's what I did. And I remember the first year we did it, we went to, we had a couple of games here and there, maybe 2 or 3 games with other teams. And then the big thing was we'd go to basically go to the stadium in Minot, North Dakota. And that was kind of the big thing where it was like a whole weekend. It was like a tournament. And they had individual drill type things that you would compete in. And then they had, of course, different divisions of basketball games. And the first year that I joined, we actually did really well. If I remember correctly, I actually won some of I think I won some of the individual drill competitions I was in. And I think the first year, I think we either won or we got second place. I can't even remember now. We won our division. The second year, I remember we didn't do as well. I think I did okay in the individual stuff, and I think we got second or third in our division. We still did reasonably well, but we didn't do as well the second year. I remember like the second year that I did it, it was in the fourth quarter, and I had my first. It wasn't bad, but I remember that was my one sort of sports injury. I was running down the field, and somehow I had twisted my ankle, and I just bit it. I just went down pretty hard, and my ankle might have been a little bit swollen for a day or two, but other than that, it was fine. I didn't break anything or anything like that. But yeah, I remember that. And really the main modification that we had, because this wasn't just for blind or visually impaired, we had people with all kinds of different disabilities on the teams. I was the only low vision person on the team. And as part of the accommodation, instead of the regular brown basketballs, we had a striped ball that would have these kind of red, white, and blue stripes. Like you know what a basketball looks or feels like. All the little where the little ridges are, each one of those sections they would alternate between red, white, and blue, and that just stood out to me better. So like if I got a pass or if I was doing D, I could see where the ball was better, and if they passed me, then I could try to catch it. And I scored a few points. I didn't, there was one guy that was kind of the soul of our team. He was just a machine. But yeah, we did okay. So that was one approach that, again, I never got to play football, basketball, or anything like that for a regular sports team. But I did have some experience playing Special Olympic basketball for like 2 years, like I said. The other thing that we did for sports-wise that I learned about when I went to the School for the Blind in 7th grade, one of the sports that I learned about was called goal ball. And I'll give you a really quick rundown if you haven't heard of it. Goal ball is a pretty brutal sport, actually. You play it in a gym. They put tape down on the floor, and each team has 3 team members on it. You have a center in the middle, and then you have a left and a right wing. Your center is a little bit ahead on a line, basically on your free throw line. And then you have a couple of lines that come out from the side of the court inward, and they're a little bit behind the center. So I was usually playing left wing. And we had a killer center. I played during practice. I played against our center. Oof, yeah, he hurt, man. He could flick that ball just when it hit you, it hurt. But you had, like I said, you played blindfolded, so whether you had any vision or not, you were all blindfolded. To be fair, the gym had to be quiet, so fans couldn't cheer until like the end of the quarter or the game or whatever. I don't remember how if were they like 3 minutes each or 3 or 5 minutes per half. I can't remember. But basically, like I said, you're playing both offense and defense, and you stay on your line. You try to remain oriented, and you have this giant kind of bowling ball sized ball with bells in it, and you hurled it on the ground. You just whipped it across the floor. Like you were basically, I called it goal ball was bowling for people. But you were actually bowling, you were trying to avoid the person because you're trying to, just like any, like, hockey or something like that, you're trying to get it past everybody else on the other team. So the other three people that were defending, you try to get it past them and hit the gym wall. And you didn't want it to go out of bounds, too far to the left or right. So that's what you were doing. If you were playing defense, you were usually kneeling on the floor. And when you heard the ball, you would either sit or you would lie down and you would block the ball. And yes, you had to be careful because you could get hit in the face, you could get hit in the gut, you could get hit in the nether regions, and that did not feel good either. All of those happened to me, and pretty much will happen to anyone or everybody who plays the game. I pretty much guarantee it at some point. But it was an interesting sport. Like I said, it was pretty brutal because, when you hear that thing, sometimes it's moving depending on who's throwing that thing. It could be going really, really fast, and you better get in front of it quick. And I kind of threw myself really hard into the game, and like we had some players who were a little more passive, just kind of sit there, and you really kind of had to compensate for them. So sometimes you would, dash over to their, you would dash over and try to make sure that you caught more of where they were covering. But then you might smash heads because you couldn't see each other. My knees hurt after a while. Like I could not play that game anymore because my knees are shot after all these years working on the farm and everything. But when I did, it was fun. We actually, the North Dakota team, we had a couple teams, and we would play like a regional tournament a few times a year. We had like North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. I think Iowa was there, a part of it. And our team, we won a lot of the tournaments that we played in. We were a pretty good team. Like I was okay. The other wing was generally okay. But like I said, our center, man, I think when he had the ball, you didn't want to be in front of his because it hurt. You blocked it, but you didn't like it. So yeah, I'm glad he was on our team. So I, like I said, I did have a couple of sports opportunities, basketball, goalball, a little bit of phy-ed stuff. We did that. So that's, again, if there's a way to let a blind or visually impaired person join a team, like I said, baseball, basketball, I don't know. I know they have, like, for adults anyway, I don't know as far as, like, what's available for kids or students. But, I've heard about blind hockey leagues or beat baseball leagues, blind bowling leagues. I totally forgot. I was in a bowling league for about, 3 years? It was a few years. That was around junior high. I forgot about that. And that was not a blindness thing. I was the only visually impaired person. This was just part of our school. On Saturdays, me, my brother, and a couple friends of ours, we were on a bowling league. And I did okay. I was never good. I think my high was maybe like 113 or 118. So I was never great. but I think my average was usually about 72, 75. I don't know. It was fun. That was kind of cool because I did get to participate with everybody else. I really liked the head of the bowling league lady that worked at the bowling alley. Oh God, what was her name? She was cool though. I really liked her, and she didn't care. She's like, yeah, man, and she'd be there and watching us play. And when it was my turn, she'd kind of tell the people that were keeping score, because we had paper score sheets at the time. We didn't have those digital ones yet. And so she'd be like, oh, you have, she'd tell me I threw my first ball, and she'd say, oh, well, you have the 7, 8, and the 10 pin. And I knew the layout of how the pins were arranged, so I knew what to do, because I couldn't see exactly which pins were still left up. And so she helped me with that, and she told other people how to tell me what I had, and yeah, that was actually really fun. I enjoyed that. I forgot all about bowling. I actually had my own bowling ball because I was in it for a couple of years. I remember getting a bowling ball with a blue bowling ball with my name on it for Christmas one year. So yeah, there are ways to get people in, a blind or vision impaired student involved in sports, or if they're interested in athletics. I'm sure there's a way to get people in track if that's what they want to do. Like I said, if somebody has some vision at the very least, I could see someone, once you get the hang of it, like if someone can help you get up to the line of scrimmage or whatever. I've heard of other visually impaired players since play football. But yeah, like a lineman or something, I could see that in a high school environment. Hey, why not? Why not? And that's really what we had sports. Because like I said, I was in the middle of nowhere. I did not grow up in a big city, so we didn't have all these other things that, like, I wish that I had back then, that I hear people get to do now. It's like, oh, there's, not that I would be interested in debate, but it's like, you've got, more academic or more nerdy type of clubs. Like, oh, you got a movie club or a game club or a debate club or a chess club, or, any number of different things. But nowadays, students probably have more of those types of things because, maybe they could join a technology club, or they could, any number of things. Just getting to be with their non-disabled peers more often, and prove, not just to themselves, build confidence, but I think it really helps all the students that you grow up with too, just to be like, oh, he's just one of us. He can do computery stuff, or he can play sports or bowl or whatever with us. He's just, and then when they take that out into the real world, maybe that'll just be all for the better, because then when they see, oh, somebody with a disability, if they're applying for a job, or they see them in school, college or something, maybe we'll get rid of some of these misconceptions or assumptions or low expectations. But I think it's important for people with disabilities, students with disabilities, to have some of those opportunities just like everybody else does. I'm glad I had the opportunities that I did. I wish I would have had a couple more, but I did take shop, or they called it VOAG, but I found that I really did kind of like woodworking. One of the summer camps that I went to actually also had someone working, so I learned about, hand tools, hand saws, but I also learned about how to safely use power tools, radial arm saws, and all kinds of different things, and how to measure. Like there's this really cool thing called a click rule, so you can measure tactily. And make your own measurements. And so, yeah, I mean, shop was kind of cool. Like I like doing that. Never really got to do welding. That was another thing that they're like, no. I'm not sure how good I would have been at that, but I never did learn to weld. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff I did in high school. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. I did mention, I think in another video, I think it was during my junior or senior, it might have been my senior year. For one semester, I worked at the same town where I went to the basketball team, our local newspaper. And for the first part of the semester, I wrote a column on technology, not assistive technology, but just, this is again, computers and the internet were really just kind of starting to become a thing. And so I wrote a column, I think it was like 4 or 5 different articles or something over the first few weeks, where it was like, one it would be about like, what to look for when you're buying a computer. Like I knew enough to kind of help people with that. Or like, I don't even remember what some of the topics were. I know one of them I touched on gaming, because I'd played enough DOS PC games and stuff. So I got to do a little bit of writing, and then for the rest of the semester, they had me working in Adobe Photoshop, and I learned how to. They would take pictures for the paper. We had a flatbed scanner. We'd scan them in, and we would turn them black and white, because of course newspapers, black and white. And how to basically adjust some basic photo settings to make it look good for a black and white picture, and then we would save them, so that once they were saved and everything, all they had to do is print them out. So I learned a little bit of photo editing skills. That was fun. That was the main opportunity that I had in high school, as far as like a I don't even know if that one was paid. I think that was just like a volunteer, like an in-school work experience. I don't even think I got paid for that, or if I did, it wasn't much. But my work experience, as I said, was working on the farm, animals, gardens, lawns, anything in between. Lots and lots of long manual labor. College, I had some experience, as I will talk about in my college video, transition video. In addition to going to college, the classes, I joined a computer club. After I had transferred, I joined that university's computer club for a couple of years, and we went to see the Consumer Electronics Show one year, CES, and we met and did a couple of things. I had a group of guys that we would get together and play games and kind of have LAN parties every once in a while and that kind of a thing. Work experience. I say this in the other video, but I'm going to reiterate it here. Take advantage of being in college and get work experience. Because when you're looking for a job afterward, you really, really want to have a stacked resume. You really want to show an employer that, hey, I have a disability maybe, but I can and have worked. And especially if you can get it in the field that you're interested in, even better. But even if you can't find a job opening in, like say you're into technology, and you couldn't find any jobs, but you found a job at a convenience store or a restaurant, or just doing something else on the campus. Don't turn down those opportunities, because even if it's not in your field of interest directly, you're still going to gain employment skills. You're going to gain soft skills, networking. You'll meet people. You'll learn just about other things about how working in the real world works. There's just anything, whether it's a college job or a summer job or after school job if you're in high school. Jobs are not, don't say, oh, this job is beneath me, I mean, I'm into technology, or I'm into, I don't know, agriculture, or I'm into whatever, and I'm not going to work in anything else. You're doing yourself a huge disservice if you just wall yourself off to that. Especially if you have a disability, for the love of God, at least in the beginning, take what you can get. If you can get a job working from somewhere and get some experience, take it. Because you'll learn a lot and you'll be able to build for your resume. Trying to think what else. I mean, when I was in the first college, I really didn't know that many people. I hung out with a couple of people in my dorm between classes or in the evenings. But beyond that, I went. They had a short-lived. It was like an anime club or something, and I went to like one or two sessions of that, and we would watch a couple of things. I think that's where I saw Ghost in the Shell for the first time, the movie. But yeah, college, I really didn't do as many like extracurricular like fun activities. Like I said, I had the computer club. A lot of the side stuff that I did there was more sort of work related, where, whether it's working in the Disability Services Office, working in the Instructional Technology Center, building that help system. Again, it'll be in a future video. I'll go into more detail there. But it was really just kind of building my strengths and working in technology and those different types of things. But like I said, I really think that in addition to learning all of the school skills and all the blindness skills, like in the K-12 video that I did, I talked about both the student and the teacher, the vision teacher, especially if the vision teacher is new to whatever they're trying to teach the student, whether it's Braille or technology or whatever. Start that as young as possible. Start it as early as possible, because the teacher, the para, the whatever, they can learn the simple stuff right along with the student, and then by the time they get up to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, they're building their skills right along with the student. So that's my major, I think, bit of advice for both students and vision teachers, because like I said, I meet a lot of vision teachers who they're just trying to get them through what they need to. They want to get them through their academic classes. And again, if you don't use that, if you're a sighted person or a non-disabled person and you don't use this stuff on a daily basis or a regular basis, you don't learn it as well, and so it's harder to teach. But again, like I said, I think if they taught this stuff early, then you could start with the simple stuff. Just like when you're learning to read, you read littler, you read shorter stuff, so smaller words, phrases, sentences, and then you move on to the big stuff, and then you're reading and comprehending and writing about what you've read. I mean, same thing with technology. You're learning the very basics of how to get around a computer and how to open and close and switch between programs and things, and then you're learning more advanced. You're basically writing a simple, maybe a letter to grandma, and then you're learning about, oh, this is how you write a paper or a report or whatever, or this is how you go online and research stuff. So those are some of my experiences in high school, grade school, high school, even college. I talked about, not even in my school videos, but if you watch some of my other Growing Up Illegally Sighted videos, in college, I kind of volunteered to write for a couple of video game websites, because I was always in the back of my mind, I kind of wanted to be involved, or I wanted to get my foot in the door and work in the video game industry in some fashion. And I thought that might be a way to get in, because there was all these little startup websites, fan websites. I worked for a couple of Nintendo websites. Go back and watch the video for how I got into game accessibility advocacy and consulting. I talk more about that there. But really, like I said, as someone with a disability, you're probably going to be told more often than you would like that you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, or, you're excluded from doing something that you really, really want to do. There are cases where, yes, you definitely should listen to them and at least take in, you should definitely listen to what they're saying and take that into consideration. Because, like working with some of the clients that we do during my day job, we get people like, they're going to a blindness organization and my career goal is I want to be a trucker. Explain to me how you would want to do that. Well, I wouldn't drive, but I would ride along with the driver and I could, help with directions or whatever. And I'm like, well, if you want to be involved in the trucking business, maybe you could be part of dispatch, or you could work in like the warehouse where you're loading and unloading maybe, but like, why would, think about it from a business perspective. Why would somebody pay 2 people to sit in a truck, one to drive and one kind of just to sit there, when they would just generally pay a driver? Like, I mean, I could see if you're paying 2 people and then they alternated, like one drive, one slept, or one drove, one slept, and then they switched, that's one thing. But if you're just there to kind of hang out and, collect the paycheck, maybe help a little bit with unloading or something, maybe calling out a couple of GPS directions or something, why would a business hire that way? They probably wouldn't. So there are things that we can't do. We're probably not going to be a pilot. There's just certain things. Or, there may be types of jobs that you might be able to do, but you have to be able to move to another place because, if you live in California and you want to be like an ice skater, or if you live in the middle of nowhere and in rural Minnesota, North Dakota, and you want to be an actor, you might be able to find a local play theater group or something, but you're probably going to have to move somewhere that does more, that has more of those opportunities, East Coast, West Coast. But then there are a lot of cases where, at the very least, let somebody try what they want to do, even if it's maybe something a little bit unconventional. Or if, just because, what I also try to tell people is just because as an able-bodied individual, if you can't imagine how you would do something being blind or being low vision or being in a wheelchair, if you can't, like, I don't even know how I would begin doing that myself. Therefore, if I can't think of how I would do it, nobody can do it. That's not the right way to look at things either. Like playing drums. I mean, musician is one of the stereotypical jobs, or stereotypical, like, they hear, people hear that you're blind or visually impaired. Oh, what instrument do you play? It's like all tall people are good at basketball. Oh, you're blind. What do you play, piano, or what like I said, what musical instrument do you play? Yet they wouldn't let me play drums because they didn't think I could read the sheet music and keep up. I had another friend of mine who he took shop class, but he also took mechanics in high school. He did auto mechanics, and he still does them for friends and family, and he's done odd jobs for people. I've known him for like the past 20 plus years. He's totally blind. I don't know crap about cars. Like, I mean, I wish I did get to learn some of that stuff, but like, that was kind of my dad and my brother. They did a lot of the, the fixing cars and tractors and haying equipment stuff and everything. They did that. I never really got to do much um, with the mechanics thing. But, again, they're like, everybody thinks, well, cars, mechanic, you got to be able to drive. No. You can fix the cars. I mean, heck, a lot of the stuff is you're digging your hands and your tools into the engine anyway, into like, nooks and crannies under the hood, and you can't see really in there anyway. So the blind person actually has an advantage because they just do it tactily, and they can feel that they got the, they can feel how loose or tight the bolt is or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, they can do that. So at the very least, like, let them try, maybe figure out some adaptation or accommodation. There are definitely things like maybe it will work for them, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll try it, maybe they won't like it, or maybe they will fail. But then they know that. But for a lot of your different types of classes or extracurricular activities in school, giving students an opportunity to participate in things like that, and especially if they are able to do it, it builds confidence, it gives them experience. And again, I think especially if you're able to join some mainstream activities along with all of your non-disabled peers, I think it actually helps them, because then they can start to see that person with a disability as just another person. And maybe when they're out there hiring people for jobs, maybe they'll recognize that and they'll give that blind person that chance during an interview, or they will, not block. I mean, like I said, I've heard some really stupid things in my time for just, they can't tell the people, but you hear about it through back channels and, reasons for turning people down. Like, I remember there was one I heard about a few years ago where the person, they thought they could do the job well enough, but it was an old building and there was like this giant staircase. They had to go up to the second floor, and the employer was dead scared that, well, if I hire this blind person, what if they trip and fall down the stairs, and then we're liable and they'll sue us, and they can't see the stairs, so they'll fall down and they'll get hurt. And then like, that was their reason for not wanting to hire them. I'm thinking, how stupid are you? It's like, a sighted person can trip and fall down the stairs, thank you very much. That one made me a little angry, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure I could have probably said this a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more clearly. But what I want to get people thinking about in this video is, again, a lot of what you're going to face, whether it's in school, college, daily living, work, you're going to be told a lot of times that you can't do something, or we're not going to give you the opportunity to try something. You have to pick your battles. There are certain things that they told me, like, oh, we're not going to let you do it or whatever. I just kind of went along with it because it wasn't worth my time. But, there were things that I really did want to try, and I found a way around them. Oh, well, our school wouldn't let me play any sports. I found a way to be on a bowling league. I played goalball. I played actual basketball. I didn't do it in school, but 20 years later, I taught myself how to play drums, and I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast playing them now. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times people are going to tell you stuff. It's like, oh, you can't do that, or, I don't know how I would do that, so you shouldn't do it either, and whatever. Give it a shot. If you fail, guess what? You fail. Lord knows I've had my fair share of, mistakes and failures over the years, and you just learn, you learn them and you learn about them, and like, oh, well, I guess that's really not for me, or maybe that's something that I can't do as well as I thought I could. You just find something else. As I talk about in my employment video, like, there are times where it is super easy to just throw in the towel and give up. But I can't imagine a life where I literally just sit, whether I'm living at home with my parents or I'm living at home in a crappy little one-bedroom apartment that, the subsidized apartment that's super tiny. I'm living off of my monthly government check, and I'm just sitting there in my recliner, or I'm sitting there just doing nothing with my life. I couldn't do that. I can't. Even if it's just for me, like, I want to feel like I'm contributing something, I'm doing something, helping people. Again, I like the fact that I'm able to say that, hey, I'm earning a keep, and I'm making a living and supporting myself just like everybody else does. But like, I would be bored out of my mind. I talked about it in my employment video. When I was unemployed for 3.5 years, it got to the point where I didn't even like doing the things I loved to do. I got tired of reading. I got tired of playing games. I got tired of watching movies or TV shows. Because I felt worthless. So, I felt like I have to do something. So getting these experiences, I know I kind of went off the track again, but I tend to do that sometimes. But hopefully this video has helped in some way, giving you some ideas. Whether you're a student yourself or you're working with a student, gives you something to think about, gives you some ideas, and I think that's where I am going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. There is definitely more to come. We got some transition and college video stuff coming up. We've got an employment video coming up, and both of those I think are also really good. So you definitely want to stay tuned for those. And who knows what else we may have in the future for Growing Up Illegally Sighted. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Feel free to share it. I hope it helps people. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-sighted, illegally-sighted.com, and right here on YouTube. Until next time, I will chat with everybody again later.